Welcome to this quiet space. Before we begin our descent into rest, let us acknowledge the nature of our journey. This summary is a gentle introduction to the narrative. In providing it, in no way am I trying to simplify or distort the work of the original author. It is merely a condensation curated for the stillness of this moment. It is my sincere hope that these words serve as a calming companion, and that they inspire you to seek out the original written work of art by Andy Weir. The depths and brilliance of Project Hail Mary offer so much more than these few minutes can hold. Let this be a soft invitation to explore the full richness of the story itself. His name is Ryland Grace. He is a scientist. He was, before everything changed, a junior high school science teacher who wrote a paper that almost nobody read and taught lessons to 12-year-olds who were mostly thinking about lunch. He is not a hero in the conventional sense. He does not have chiseled features or a tragic backstory or a burning desire for adventure. He is curious and kind, and very good at thinking about problems from unexpected angles, and these qualities, so ordinary, so quiet, turn out to be exactly what the universe needs from him. When Ryland wakes up, he is on a spaceship. This would be alarming under most circumstances, but he does not know enough to be alarmed because he does not know anything at all. He does not know his name. He does not know where he is. He does not know what year it is or why his body aches or what the humming machinery around him is doing or where in the vast and indifferent cosmos this small metal room might be located. His memories are gone, not entirely, not forever, but currently very far away, like something dropped into deep water, visible if you squint but not yet reachable. He floats. The ship is in zero gravity and he is not accustomed to this and he bumps into things. He finds food, tubes of something nourishing if not exactly delicious, and he eats, and gradually the simple physical act of eating and breathing and moving through the ship begins to anchor him. He is here. He does not know where here is, but here is real. The ship is real. The quiet hum of the engines is real. He is, for the time being, alive, which is the most important thing. There were supposed to be 3 people on this ship. He knows this before he knows almost anything else, knows it the way you sometimes know things in dreams, as a kind of background fact that simply exists without needing explanation. 3 crew members, including him. He finds the other 2 in their hibernation pods, and they are dead. They died in their sleep at some point during the long voyage, and they died quietly and without suffering, and they are very definitely gone. And so Ryland Grace is alone in a spaceship, somewhere in space, with no memory of why he is there or what he is supposed to do. The memories come back slowly. This is the kindest thing the story does for him. It does not dump everything on him at once. Instead, the past surfaces in fragments, rising like bubbles from deep water, each one delivering a piece of the picture. His name, his work. The meetings he sat through, the laboratory he worked in, the woman who changed everything. The crisis. The mission, the terrible, necessary, audacious thing humanity decided to do. The sun is dying, not quickly. Not dramatically, not in the way of science fiction catastrophes with explosions and countdowns. Just slowly, steadily, imperceptibly to anyone who is not carefully measuring, the sun is getting dimmer. A fraction of a percent, then a bit more. The kind of dimming that does not hurt you today or tomorrow or even this year, but that compresses forward through time into something catastrophic. Colder winters, shorter growing seasons, crops that fail a little, then more, then a lot. Famines that begin at the edges of the world and creep inward. Billions of people facing a future in which the star that has sustained life on Earth for billions of years is simply, quietly ceasing to do its job. Scientists figure out the reason. The culprit is an organism, a microorganism, something so small you could fit trillions of them on the head of a pin, called Astrophage. It lives on stars. It has been living on stars, on many stars across the galaxy, for longer than humanity has existed. It absorbs energy from the surface of a star, converts that energy into a dense biological fuel, reproduces, and then departs sailing through space on the pressure of starlight itself, following the magnetic highways between star systems, drifting endlessly toward the next meal. It does not know it is a problem. It has no awareness of the civilizations it is starving. It is just doing what organisms do, eating, reproducing, moving on. The astrophage is, in its own terrible way, beautiful. It is life that lives on stars. It converts stellar energy with perfect efficiency into biological matter. It travels between suns using physics. It is one of the most extraordinary things humanity has ever discovered, and it is also absolutely going to kill everyone on Earth if nobody stops it. Here is the thing that saves everything, or at least opens the door to saving everything. Not every star infected with astrophage is dimming at the same rate. Most infected stars are getting darker slowly, just like the sun. But one star, Tau Ceti, 40 light-years from Earth, has astrophage, and yet its astrophage population is stable. Something near Tau Ceti is keeping the little creatures in check. Something out there in that distant corner of space is controlling the organisms that are everywhere else running rampant and unchecked. Whatever it is the answer. It is possibly the salvation of the human race. And the only way to find out what it is to go there, 40 light-years, an incomprehensible distance. Even traveling at a significant fraction of the speed of light, it takes years. The crew cannot be awake for the whole journey, they would go mad or simply age too much or consume too many resources. So they sleep. They are put into hibernation pods, sealed in and sedated, their bodies maintained in slow metabolism suspension while the ship crosses the dark between stars. They go under on a desperate, frightened, increasingly cold Earth, and the plan is that they will wake up near Tau Ceti, ready to find the answer, ready to bring it home. The woman who organizes all of this is Dr. Eva Stratt, and she is one of the most fascinating supporting characters in recent science fiction, though she would hate to be called a supporting character because she considers herself entirely central to everything, which is both her great flaw and her great asset. Stratt is given in the chaos of the global crisis an almost unprecedented level of authority. She can commandeer resources from any nation. She can compel scientists to work on her project. She can make decisions that normally require committees and approvals and years of deliberation, and she makes them in hours because there is no time for anything else. She is not warm exactly. She is not the kind of person who lingers over feelings. But she is completely, utterly, selflessly committed to the mission, and her ruthlessness is in service of something so important that it is difficult to fully condemn her for it. She finds Ryland Grace in his classroom. He wrote a paper years ago, a speculative, somewhat ignored paper, about the theoretical possibility of life forms living on or near stars, sustained by stellar energy. Most people who read it thought it was interesting but impractical. Strat read it and flagged it and saved it, because Strat saves everything that might matter. When the astrophage crisis arrives and scientists need to understand a life form that lives on a star, she goes straight to the man who thought about this possibility before anyone needed to. Ryland is reluctant. He is a teacher. He likes his students, or at least tolerates them with the particular affectionate exasperation of someone who has chosen this particular form of difficulty. He does not especially want to be absorbed into a world-saving project that will consume his entire life. But Strat is not really asking, and Ryland is not really the kind of person who can say no to something genuinely important. And so he joins the team, and the years pass in his memory as a blur of laboratories and breakthroughs and setbacks, and late nights, and the slow, grinding, exhilarating work of understanding something nobody has ever understood before. He is not chosen for the mission at first. He is a consultant, an expert, a necessary part of the ground team. The mission crew is selected carefully, 3 people with the right skills, the right psychological profiles, the right bodies. Ryland is not one of them initially. But then something changes, and the something that changes is that the original crew needs to be replaced, and Strat needs someone with a specific combination of biological knowledge and adaptability, and the ability to function alone in impossible circumstances. And she looks at her list of candidates, and she looks at Ryland Grace, and she makes a decision. She does not ask him. He is sedated and put in the hibernation pod before he fully comprehends what is happening. This is, if you think about it too long, a rather alarming thing to do to a person. Strat does not think about it too long. Strat is aware that there is no good way to send someone on a one-way trip to another star, and that this is, perhaps, the least bad option available to her. She does what she has to do. She always does what she has to do. And so Ryland wakes up on the Hail Mary, in the dark, alone, with no memory, near a star that is 40 light years from everything he has ever known. He spends time learning the ship, relearning himself, getting the fragments of his memory to cohere into something like a continuous past. He runs experiments on the astrophage samples the ship is carrying, because understanding the organism was always part of the mission, not just finding whatever is controlling it near Tau Ceti, but understanding the creature itself as completely as possible. He is a biologist working in space, which is an unusual thing to be, and he finds that the work grounds him, gives him purpose in the drifting purposelessness of his situation. And then he makes a discovery that changes absolutely everything. There is another ship. He detects it with the Hail Mary's instruments, at first just as an anomaly, something that should not be there, something that does not fit any pattern he knows. He investigates carefully, cautiously, with the methodical attention of someone who has learned not to jump to conclusions in space, because space is already full of enough genuine surprises without adding hasty misinterpretations to the list. It is a ship. Unambiguously a ship. A constructed object travelling under power near Tau Ceti. It did not come from Earth. It is not shaped like anything human beings would build. It operates on principles that are subtly but meaningfully different from human engineering. And it is broadcasting a signal, a repeating mathematical signal, the kind of thing you broadcast when you want to be found, when you want to say to the universe, I am here, whoever is listening, I am here. Ryland broadcasts back. What follows is one of the most quietly extraordinary things in the story, though there are several extraordinary things to choose from, and the competition is stiff. Over days and then weeks, through enormous patience and creativity on both sides, two creatures who have never imagined the other's existence begin to build a bridge of understanding. They start with mathematics because mathematics is the one language the universe speaks everywhere. They establish numbers, they establish operations, they establish the ability to transmit and confirm information. And then, with agonizing slowness and tremendous mutual goodwill, they begin to construct something more. The creature on the other ship is not human. He is not humanoid. He is hard and dense and multi-limbed, built for the pressures of a deep underground world, with a body plan that owes nothing to Earth's evolutionary history, and a biology running on chemistry that would kill Ryland instantly if he breathed it. He communicates naturally with a tonal, musical language. His species speaks in frequencies and harmonics rather than phonemes, and their words are chords rather than syllables. He is, in every measurable biological sense, as alien as anything has ever been to anything. He is also warm and clever and funny and earnest, and he cares deeply about solving problems, and he has a kind of patient, thorough, engineering-focused intelligence that meshes perfectly with Ryland's more intuitive, hypothesis-driven scientific mind. His name, as best as it can be rendered into something a human voice can produce, is Rocky. Ryland names him this because of the dense, rocky quality of his carapace, and because it is a friendly name, and because Ryland is the kind of person who immediately gives friendly names to alien life forms he has just met in the void between stars. Rocky is from a civilization called the Eridians. His people live inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Their entire civilization, their entire history, all of their accumulated knowledge and culture and technology, exists within a single enormous rock they have been inhabiting and improving for thousands of years. They are extraordinary engineers. They build things with a precision and confidence that makes Ryland slightly envious, coming as he does from a civilization that builds things and then spends a great deal of time fixing the things they built. Rocky approaches every engineering problem with a kind of calm, methodical certainty that is immensely comforting to be around. Rocky is also on a one-way mission. He also came to Tau Ceti because his star, the star his asteroid home orbits, is also dimming from Astrophage. His civilization also looked at the data and identified Tau Ceti as the anomaly, the infected star whose infection is somehow under control, the place where the answer must be hiding. His people also sent their most capable scientist on a desperate journey across space to find out why. He arrived around the same time as Ryland, for the same reason, with the same impossible task and the same absence of any reasonable expectation of survival. They are, in other words, the same person. From completely different planets, with completely different biology and history and culture and sensory experience, they are doing exactly the same thing for exactly the same reason, which is perhaps the most extraordinary coincidence in the history of life, or perhaps not a coincidence at all, but simply the inevitable convergence of any civilization smart enough to recognize a problem and desperate enough to do whatever it takes to solve it. The two of them cannot share the same space. Rocky's atmosphere is dense with ammonia at temperatures that would cook Ryland. Ryland's atmosphere would poison Rocky in seconds. They dock their ships together and construct a barrier, a physical dividing wall between their two environments, with a transparent section through which they can see each other, through which they can communicate, through which they can pass objects carefully enclosed in the appropriate atmospheric conditions. They press themselves against this barrier, these two impossible creatures, and they talk. Their language develops over time into something real, something both of them can use to convey not just scientific data but opinions, humor, frustration, enthusiasm, sadness. Rocky's natural speech is musical, a chord-based tonal language that Ryland spends considerable effort learning to interpret and eventually to produce, at least crudely, using a device he builds for the purpose. Ryland's language is phonemic and sequential, which Rocky finds strange but masters with impressive speed because Rocky is very good at most things he tries. They develop jokes. They have preferences. They disagree occasionally about methodology or priorities, in the gentle, constructive way of colleagues who respect each other enough to push back. Rocky calls Ryland stowaway. This is because when Rocky first detected Ryland's presence on the Hail Mary, he assumed Ryland was a passenger who had hidden on the ship rather than a legitimate crew member, partly because Ryland was the only one left alive, and partly because Ryland spent his first conscious hours bumping into walls, which is not the behavior of an experienced astronaut. Ryland does not mind the nickname. He finds it endearing. Rocky seems pleased that Ryland finds it endearing, in the way that Rocky seems pleased by most positive social interactions, with a kind of warm, slightly surprised gratitude, as though being liked is something he considers a gift rather than an expectation. What they find near Tau Ceti after considerable investigation is another organism. Something simpler than Astrophage, something smaller and more basic, something that feeds on Astrophage the way Astrophage feeds on starlight. They call it Tormoba. It is, in the ecological sense, a predator, or at least a consumer, a creature that has evolved to exploit the energy-rich biological matter of astrophage cells, and has been keeping the local astrophage population stable for what is probably a very long time. Near Tau Ceti, the Tormoba and the astrophage have reached an equilibrium, a balance that prevents either from overwhelming the other, a tiny ecosystem of organisms that nobody suspected existed, floating in the space around a distant star. The solution to everything is immediately obvious: bring Tormoba home, release it into the solar system. Let it eat the astrophage infesting the sun. Let the balance be restored. Let the sun brighten again. Let 8 billion people continue to live in the warmth of their star without knowing how close they came to losing it. This is obvious. The execution is harder. Tormoba turns out to be delicate in specific ways that take a great deal of time and failure to fully understand. It cannot survive certain chemical environments. It is sensitive to temperature in ways that vary depending on how it has been treated. It dies when exposed to compounds that are produced when astrophage is digested by something other than Tormoba itself. Every time Ryland and Rocky think they have figured out how to keep a sample alive and viable for the journey home, something goes wrong. The creatures die. They run more experiments. They develop new hypotheses. They test the hypotheses with the patient, slightly exhausted dedication of two scientists who understand that failure is not the end of science. It is just science, and that the answer is in the data somewhere if they keep looking. It takes time. It takes a great deal of trial and error. It takes the kind of sustained concentration and mutual support that is only possible between people who trust each other completely. And it takes the specific complementary genius of a biologist and an engineer approaching the same problem from different angles until the angles converge on a solution. The solution, when it comes, involves the specific chemistry of how astrophage stores its energy. Pure astrophage, undisturbed, unmetabolized in its natural state, is a safe environment for Tormoba. The problem is contamination. As long as the Tormoba samples are kept in pure astrophage, away from the byproducts of digestion, they survive. They thrive even. They reproduce at reasonable rates and go about their small biological business with the comfortable indifference of creatures that have no awareness of their own significance. Ryland prepares samples. He prepares them with the painstaking care of someone who has one chance and knows it, who is preparing something that must survive a years-long journey in a hibernating ship and arrive at the solar system still alive, still viable, still ready to do the job they were collected to do. He runs checks on the checks. He writes documentation so thorough that any competent scientist on Earth could continue from where he leaves off. He does everything he can think of to maximize the probability of success. But there is another crisis alongside the biological one, and it has been building in the background with the steady patience of an engineering problem that has not yet been fully acknowledged. Rocky's ship is failing. A critical component, something essential to the navigation and propulsion systems that would get him home, has degraded beyond the point of function, and the replacement parts Rocky would need do not exist in the material available to him, and there is no obvious solution, and this means Rocky is not going to make it back to Eridian. This means Rocky is going to die here near Tau Ceti, alone in his ship, far from everything he has ever known. Rocky tells Ryland this with the quiet, matter-of-fact acceptance of someone who has been psychologically prepared for this outcome for a long time. The Eridian mission, like the human one, was always understood to be likely fatal. Rocky came out here knowing he was probably not going to see home again. He is sad about it, in whatever way Eridians experience sadness, but he is not surprised, and he is not going to let it stop him from finishing his work. There is still science to do. There is still a solution to bring home, even if he himself cannot be the one to carry it. Ryland does not accept this. This is perhaps the most human thing about him, not his biology, not his language, not his particular kind of intelligence, but this: the inability to accept the preventable death of someone he loves. And he does love Rocky, in whatever way humans experience love for beings who share none of their biology and almost none of their reference points, because love is not really about shared biology or reference points. Love is about showing up consistently and caring about what happens and finding the other person's existence to be a net improvement to the universe. And by all of these measures, Ryland loves Rocky completely. He will not let Rocky die without trying everything. What they build together to solve Rocky's propulsion problem is something neither of them could have built alone. It requires Ryland's biological knowledge of astrophage. which can be used not just as a fuel, but as a highly efficient energy medium in ways Rocky's civilization has not explored. And Rocky's engineering expertise, which allows him to design the components that could use astrophage in this novel way, constructed from the materials available on both ships. Manufactured with Rocky's tools and Ryland's hands at various points where the physical division between their environments requires both of them to contribute. They design it together. They build it together. It works. Rocky can go home. There is a goodbye. I will not dwell on it too long, because goodbyes between beings who genuinely love each other are things that earn their weight rather than being owed explanation. And this one is very good, and you should experience it properly in the book rather than through a sleepy summary. What I will tell you is that it is warm and sad and funny and real, in the way of all the best farewells, and that when Rocky's ship separates from the Hail Mary and moves away into the darkness of space, the absence is felt. Ryland travels home alone. The hibernation pods keep him in slow suspension while the years of the journey pass around him. He wakes periodically to check on things and then goes back under. His cargo, the Tormoba samples, carefully maintained, biologically active, carrying within their microscopic bodies the survival of two civilizations, sits in its specialized housing and does not know it is important, because it is composed of organisms too simple to know anything. When the solar system comes back into the sensors, it is almost too much to process. The familiar planets. The familiar light of the familiar sun, still shining, still warm, not yet too dim to sustain life. Earth still there. Earth still broadcasting the endless chatter of 8 billion people going about their 8 billion lives in the cheerful ignorance of the fact that someone they never met did something extraordinary to keep them alive. Ryland makes contact. The response is immediate and overwhelming. He is not dead. He has not only survived, but he is returning with exactly what they needed, and the people on the other end of the radio are not quite able to process this at first, because the probability of this outcome was low enough that most of them had not built it into their expectations. He is alive. He has the Tormoba. He is coming home. The ship enters the solar system. The scientists and engineers and mission controllers who have been waiting, through all the slow years, for any signal from the Hail Mary receive their cargo and their survivor with the kind of relief that does not express itself in celebration immediately, but in a long, shaking, quiet exhale that precedes everything else. The Tormoba are studied. The deployment is planned. The math confirms what it should confirm. The organisms will survive in the solar environment. They will find and consume the astrophage. The equilibrium will be established. The sun will brighten. The earth will be okay. And Ryland Grace, who has just saved the entire human race, who has done the most important thing any individual person has ever done for their species, prepares to come home. He has earned it. He has earned every comfortable, ordinary, sunlit day that waits for him. He can land, he can be welcomed, he can be given whatever honors a civilization gives to the person who kept it alive. He can see green things growing in warm light. He can eat food that is not tubes of paste. He can sleep in a bed that is not a hibernation pod, and he can sleep knowing that the star outside the window is going to be there in the morning, bright and warm and permanent. He prepares to descend. And then his instruments detect something. A signal. Faint because it is coming from far away, still out in the dark somewhere past the edge of what the solar system means as a human concept. But unmistakable. A signal on familiar frequencies. A mathematical structure that Ryland recognizes not because any human created it, but because he helped create it, working for months with another mind across a transparent barrier in an impossible ship in the dark near a distant star. A signal broadcasting on the protocols of a language that only two creatures in the universe have ever spoken. Rocky is alive. Rocky should not be alive. The engineering on his ship should not have held. The journey should have been too much. The numbers did not favor it. And yet here in Ryland's data is the evidence of the most stubborn, most welcome, most Rocky thing imaginable, the refusal to die when dying was the expected outcome. Rocky is out there. Rocky is transmitting. Rocky is almost certainly wondering where Ryland is and whether Ryland made it home and whether the plan worked, and doing this in the precise, methodical, hopeful way that Rocky does everything, which is to say with complete focus and very little drama. Ryland does not land. He thinks about it for exactly as long as it takes to understand what the signal means and what it would mean to ignore it, which is not very long at all. He thinks about what it means to go home, what home is, what it has become. He thinks about a creature in a dense ammonia atmosphere on the other side of a transparent wall who called him stowaway and meant it as a term of deepest affection. He thinks about the fact that the universe, which is mostly dark and empty and cold, briefly contained something very bright and warm, and that the brightness is still out there waiting. He turns the ship around. He goes toward the signal, toward Rocky. Away from Earth, away from recognition, away from the comfortable, ordinary life that was waiting for him, and toward the one being in the universe who shared the strangest experience in the history of any two minds, and who is alive, and who is there, and who is more important to Ryland Grace than any of the honors that humans might have given him. That is where the story ends, not on Earth, not in ceremony or rest or the rewards that were legitimately earned. It ends in space, with a man heading toward his friend because some things matter more than going home. Because the connections we make in impossible circumstances are real as anything, and they are worth crossing the dark for. The universe is very large and mostly empty. But right now, in this particular corner of it, two ships are moving toward each other. Inside one of them, a human being is smiling. Inside the other, an alien is probably already designing the next thing they will build together. The sun is going to be fine. The earth is going to be fine. Rocky is going to be fine. Ryland Grace is going to be fine. Sleep now. Dream of stars. The dark between them is not empty. It is full of things we haven't found yet, and someone will find them slowly with curiosity and patience and the particular grace that comes from not being able to stop being interested in the world. Good night.